You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to an episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today, but before we do, huge shout out to our sponsors. The Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is the Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma. And it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. A huge shout out to Governor Anatobi for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. This episode is brought to you by the Doghouse OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my two pups, and the Doghouse have come in clutch. The team over there are incredible. So go to thedoghouseokc.com and follow them on Instagram at thedoghouseokc, and hopefully our pups will run into each other. What's up, guys? Welcome back to an episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode down at Bedford's Camera. As always, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our guest today, who has got a really long resume that I'll probably read before you listen to this part. But please welcome to the podcast, Mr. Lance Walker, who is the executive director of, and I'm going to read this so I don't mess it up, Rick and Gail Moncrief, executive director of Oklahoma State University's Human Performance and Nutrition Research Institute.
Well done.
Pretty good, right?
Not bad, right?
Yeah. You've been at OSU for a little bit.
Yeah.
But you're a fifth-generation Oklahoman, which I've just learned, and have a pretty epic resume in sports and athletics and human performance. As a golfer myself, it's, human performance has probably come into my world, let's say, like heavy, probably the last 10 years, because Tiger was working out crazy, and I grew up watching Tiger Woods. But now they're all in the gym, they're working on speed. A lot of the baseball players are kind of doing golf workouts, are doing the same as the baseball players are. And, growing up and playing with baseball players when I've been out here, like, they always had speed. And so now we never really focused on it in college. And I said, I was in college 10 years ago when I graduated, 11 now. And now it's just like, if I had speed, and I'm not like 30 now, trying to keep 35, trying to keep my speed up. But excited to dive into your story and learn some myself as well. And one of the things I saw is I'm a huge Man United fan. I was a Man United fan growing up because of Ryan Giggs, who's from Wales. You have that on your resume. And also I'm a huge F1 fan. You have Williams F1 on your resume. I'm excited to dive into those things. But with the podcast, what we like to do is to share your origin story. So tell me a little bit about where you're born and raised.
Well, as you said, I'm fifth generation Okie, born in Woodward, Oklahoma, northwest Oklahoma, but lived my first few years on a farm in Freedom, Oklahoma. So for your listeners that know where Freedom is, Alabaster Caverns, the famous Freedom Rodeo, huge town, Freedom, it's giant metropolis. In 1971, I lived in a farmhouse with my family during the blizzard of 1971, which you don't. You weren't around for that. I have to look that up. Stories were that they flew in nutritional provisions for me in a helicopter.
Wow.
That we had to buy snowmobiles to get around.
Not like the recent,
any of that.
Not like the recent.
Not like the recent one, but yeah, people say, we got a lot of snow. I think we had 36 inches is the story back in 1971. So yeah, I was born there. Yeah. My family split when I was in second grade. So half the family, my mom remarried in southwest Kansas, a little town called Ashland. I thought I was in luck because I thought, she's going to get out of this farming business because this is hard, and so she remarries a rancher in Kansas. So no matter where I spent my days, I was going to be on the farm and ranch.
Which you're grateful for now.
Grateful for amazing. So so you just kind of say, where are you from? Up there. Okay. And it's kind of northwest side of the state. And some really, really amazing stories and some amazing growth came out of that. And most of the Walker family still sort of points north and west up there as home. So that's where I'm from.
Big family?
I have as I said, a split up family. So I have a brother who's now running the ranch in Ashland, Kansas. He's a helicopter pilot. And so the danger of being a helicopter pilot chased him back, I think, to run the ranch. And now he's doing amazing work on the ranching side of the business. The Walker Ranch there south of, a little bit south of Freedom is still there. And so if you drive up that piece of highway, you'll still see the old headquarters on the right. The old Chimney Rock has fallen over, which is a big iconic sort of a picture that you sometimes see. That was on the Walker Ranch. And so that family the Walker family is massive as well. And they're kind of spread out, but that's still a home base for most of them.
You grew up just around cattle your whole life?
Cattle and farming and tractors, and I hated it. I mean, I hated it.
I'm not surprised because
it was it was just a beating. And
Yeah.
it was, I say that with respect. I mean, now looking back, man, so fortunate to have been there, but I wanted to get out of the ranching and farming business as fast as I could.
Yeah.
And for me, sports was one of the things that did fire me up. Like this sport thing is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Is there a mechanism by leveraging this sport thing to kind of not have to be a farmer and a rancher? And I say again that with respect.
Yeah.
I would have made a horrible farmer and a rancher.
Well, it's a lot different now, 50 years later, with new technology as well. But still, it's hard work today. But it's not as hard work as it used to be.
But as it turns out, I'm still a farmer, and maybe we get into that. I am a farmer. I am a rancher. I am an agrarian right now with everything that I do. So I'm so thankful for that.
That's really cool.
For the
still have that. Right?
Have that. It'll never leave you.
And all those memories, right? You know, like you're still, and that's one thing. Like farming and ranching, it's the appreciation you have for the land and the weather and the resilience of animals, right? And calving season just went through the entire snowstorm that we had, you know, and people are out there just, I saw a picture of a guy I follow, and he had posted a picture on Instagram, and it was like the fireman, pants into boots and socks ready to go. And it was just, ready, calving season. Yeah.
It's always on.
Nature doesn't wait.
Doesn't wait. It's a good point. I hope we get into talking about Olympians and some of their mindset Christmas is and Christmas is a big day, right?
Yeah.
It's also Tuesday, and the calves need to be fed, or the ice needs to be broken. So there's a lot of this parallel between high performance sport that I started to see over my 30 plus years and farming and ranching that were keys to success in both. And so, very, very fortunate. Very great.
So most of your later on childhood then into high school was in Kansas.
Yeah, split in time.
Yeah.
So usually the school year was in Kansas, small town, Ashland, Kansas. Graduated with 27 people.
Yeah.
So very rural. The big town was Dodge City. It was an hour away. You were 2 hours from Wichita. Woodward, Oklahoma was where my dad and my granddad sort of home based. We still had the farm and freedoms. Summer times, come work for Grandpa on the Freedom Farm. Weekends, come to Dad. That's where I learned a lot about Oklahoma State. Was my grandfather was an Oklahoma State graduate. He was the president of Farmhouse at one point.
Oh, wow.
Played for Mr. Iba for I think for a season.
Yeah.
Before he got, I think they ran him off. But, and my dad used to always bring us to Oklahoma State football games as a kid. And we used to sneak in. If you remember you don't remember this, but there was an old chain link fence on that northeast corner over there of the stadium. Tell Chad Weiberg this, but back in the day, we would sneak in.
Yeah.
My brother and I would sneak in and watch games. And so really got fired up about Oklahoma State. And spent a lot of time back and forth on that highway between Stillwater and Woodward and Freedom. So back and forth, farming and ranching. And when Dad could, he'd get us down here to enjoy some games at Oklahoma State.
So looking back at that childhood memories of sneaking into Oklahoma State games, and now to be in the position that you're at,
crazy,
full circle, right?
Full circle, cool. Big major impact on my life. I can remember as a kid in maybe 12, 13, doodling during school the Oklahoma State logo. The OSU.
Yeah.
I got so good at that, and I've got pages and pages of doodles on that. It was so inspiring for me to see this thing. That 1982, 83, they had a really good football team and some amazing athletes. I remember sitting in that. I think it's the east end zone. There used to be just these concrete steps. They weren't even really seats. They were just kind of steps. And me and my brother, who was 5 years younger than me, we'd have the place to ourselves. We'd have the whole place. We remember watching a play, and then we'd get up and we had a little football, and we would emulate, the pass. And it was crazy. And I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
And now to look at Boone Pickens Stadium, what it is about today and the environment, I can still see me and my brother down there in the end zone being impacted by the players and the environment and the fans. And just the pageantry of college football really, really early on. And it was a big driver for what I am, really what I'm doing today.
Loyal and true, right?
Loyal and true.
There it is. Oh, that's so cool. Okay, so football, it was effectively football and sports and athletics. Like, I am going to get out of farming. Yeah. What happens then? Where do you go to university? What was, you mentioned 27 people in high school. So your high school football team, wasn't big at all, or maybe not existent.
It wasn't big. It was a very much a sporting community in Ashland, Kansas, where I went to high school. You played multiple sports, or you didn't have enough for a team. I loved basketball. I didn't love track, but we did track. You didn't play baseball because that was farming season, hay baling season. That was a summer sport. But football was a big deal to us. I thought I was I thought I was pretty good. I thought I was good enough to maybe go play somewhere. I sent my tapes out, and to your point, nobody would really take me. In fact, I sent them to Oklahoma State, obviously.
Yeah.
And I never got a call. And so I was planning on moving out and just going to school, to be honest with you. And got a phone call. I was running post hole diggers, building fence late. It would have been late May, early June. I still hadn't decided where I was going to go. And so it's really late, right? And that was back in the day when they had the first cell phones were in the giant sort of luggage thing, you know, and it was hooked up to the horn.
Yeah.
And I remember the horn going off as I'm digging post holes. And my stepdad picks up the phone and he yells out the window. He says, "Hey, there's some guy named from Kansas State University that's interested in maybe you coming up and taking a visit." And I thought, man, I'm Kansas State.
Yeah.
I don't think I sent any information there. And I don't even know if they still have a football program. Right. It was like the worst in the, at that point, it was like they were getting ready to scrap the program. I was like, well, cool. The JUCOs aren't even taking my tape right now. So I said, as I'm walking up there, he said, yeah, some guy named Bill Snyder.
Okay.
And for your listeners that know college football, Bill Snyder was a nobody at that time. Nobody knew. I didn't know. He ends up being the kind of the mechanic of the biggest turnaround, or at that point, the biggest turnaround in college football history. And now K-State football is known because of what Bill Snyder had built. So I didn't know who he was. So we pick up the phone and have that conversation with Coach Snyder. And he's a visionary. So this also feeds into my story. He's this visionary that says, look, I know you don't, K-State's terrible. We're going to do something amazing here. This has the chance to be the greatest turnaround in college. He's telling me these visionary things, and he's selling me. And this guy's crazy. Yeah. He's a crazy person to me, but he's so crazy, and he's convincing me. He's getting me fired up that this is going to be something really special. And I said, okay, what do I need to do to get up there? And he said, well, you're going to have to walk on. And that tells you how crappy I was, right? The worst in college football history, and they're asking me to walk on. He's selling me, and I'm like, yeah, I'm in. I said, what do I need to do to make this team? And he said, all you got to do is just get a little bit better every day.
Yeah.
And so that, again, feeds into what I'm done now is just that aggregation of marginal gains. Just get a little bit better every day. Yeah. And I said, I think I can do that. And that turned into a conversation. He said, I'm going to put you on the phone with your position coach, which ties to the state of Oklahoma a little bit. I said, oh, cool. And now at this point, I'm looking at my stepdad going, they're crazy, but this might be kind of interesting to go check it out.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm going to introduce you to your position coaches. His name is Bob Stoops.
Oh, yeah.
Again, I don't know who Bob Stoops is, and I get to talk to this guy named Bob Stoops who tells me that he's going to allow me to kind of walk on as a defensive back, right? Basically, just get a little bit better every day. And so there's all these weird ties, I think, that go back to the state of Oklahoma. Walked on up there, ended up being famous, I guess, for probably being the worst college football player to ever start games as a wide receiver in the Big 8 conference. I mean, I was that bad. I'm still that bad. I ended up having, as a receiver, more knee surgeries than receptions. And I've got a letter jacket. I literally played in games. So terrible, but made true on that promise. Just get a little bit better every day. Know your job. Have some grit and some resiliency. And again, that goes all the way back to my time as what I'd call the Okie grit that paid great dividends during a visionary quest from worst ever to 1993, win the Copper Bowl, and everybody's talking about this amazing thing. And to be a part of that at some very small level was a big part of what I'm doing today is finding those visionary leaders and those opportunities, and then building something and leveraging that grit that I got from my Okie, farming heritage, I think.
Were you a receiver going in, or was they like, hey, you got some height on you, you might be a little quick? Like, how do you get the receiver spot?
Yeah, because I got kicked out of the defensive back room. Bob Stoops, you remember Bob? Yeah, he's within a week, he's like, this isn't gonna work. He didn't say it, but he's just not any good. But he said, you know what you are kind of good at? He said, you can catch and you can learn really fast. And so at that time, the defensive playbook was about that big. The offensive playbook was about that big. And so he marches me out of the room. I think this was like week 1 or 2. And he says, hey, bring your playbook. And I'm like, it's over. That didn't last long. And he traded me. Literally, they made a trade in the hallway for a guy named Tommy Randolph. Nobody probably knows who Tommy Randolph is, but he was a receiver that was a little bit less good with the hands, amazing speed. And he said, hey, why don't you guys trade for a while? And so he handed me the giant playbook, and I handed him the little, the 3-page playbook. And he went in and he became a an all-conference defensive back, played in the NFL for the New York Giants for a while.
Yeah.
And I became a role player that could learn playbook.
Yeah.
And I learned every play. I learned how to play every position. I was a Swiss Army knife, not very sharp, but just an Army knife that could jump in and do whatever was needed to do.
You're drawing defensive plays out of the way of where the ball is going.
And I learned about systems, right? You don't have to be a superstar to be a cog in the wheel. And so much of my time was running routes that I knew where I needed to be, when I needed to be there. And I didn't really care if they were, in fact, don't throw me the ball. I'm a little bit nervous, but it would create space and openings for others to win for us. And so, like I said, I played sparingly as a wide receiver. I ended up starting when somebody would get injured. I'd get a start once in a while, but then really started getting hurt.
Issues.
And I had a lot of physical challenges, and a knee injury put me out that turned me on to this space of sports medicine and physical therapy. And why did I get hurt? Why did I get hurt again? And what could I have done to maybe not do that? Because that wasn't fun. And then I met things like strength conditioning coaches, and I met nutrition, and I met physical therapists, and I started to really think about this in a different way, that there's a lot of controllables out there that as a kid growing up in small town America, had I known that, I don't know what would have changed. Maybe not, but it pushed me through a lot of different learnings there that opened this world of really where I ended up being for the last 30 years. And that performance space is control the controllables and leverage some of those things across all those different disciplines to be the best version of yourself. And I think that's where I get kind of fired up now, is there was a reason for all that time and for all that hardship that I went through, and my ability to stick with things and have some resiliency. Those are things that we can all leverage for you, as a professional, for the elite athletes of today. And I started to see that. I saw that up there. I saw that in my graduate work when I left there, that people are leveraging some of those things for their betterment. How do I kind of steal from them? How do I take that and translate it to this, that, and the other? So that's been my passion ever since.
Back to you being a quick learner and learning things. What do you attribute your knowledge and ability to learn fast? Where does that come from?
Man,
because from what I just listened to you talk, and I want to clarify, it was a lot of people growing up the way that you grew up, farming and ranching, small town, education doesn't matter. It's more about learning on the job, getting the work done. Well, not majority of the time anyway. Who pushed education and learning on you, and where does that attribute, your sharp switch on?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think
retaining information come from.
My mom was a school teacher. My dad was a school teacher.
Yeah.
My grandfather was a principal and a teacher. So I come from that education sort of background. I think it's genetics.
Mm-hmm.
I have a photographic memory.
Well, that helps.
Crazy helps, right? So there's a blessing in there that I'm able to leverage. So I was able to look at a playbook and I can see the playbook. It's not fair. I can see and so I'm able to recall those things. But I think too, it was easy for me. So it allowed me I really began to spend as much time thinking and learning about other things, because the actual schoolwork itself
and you enjoyed it,
was kind of easy, right? And so it allowed me a lot of, I'm going to say, free time to free think. And so I did a lot of my own digging. And back then, digging around, that was tough. So in grad school, you'd have to still go up to the library and photocopy, journal articles and things. And so that's always been sort of a key to me, but maybe it was because I would get bored if I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
There may have been some boredom there. And if I look at something, I can absorb it, and then bring that forward and then begin to apply that to other pieces. That's the thing that gets me fired up, is you take this plus this, that dynamical interaction is where it really becomes a mind teaser for me. So blessings and education from my heritage, and learning from mistakes, I think, is a third piece there that I learned from the farming and ranching side. Is you screw it up, it's an opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
And so I enjoy that.
So you mentioned having an injury, and then that kind of is the catalyst to diving into where you end up now, into the sports medicine and meeting all these people. Before the injury, what are you thinking you're going to do? Do you thinking I'm going to go back run the farm? What do you think? You're a young adult at that point, thinking I have a career ahead of me. Are you thinking? Do you have the ability and the awareness at that point to think I'm not good enough to go to the NFL? I need to think of where are you at that point in your life?
Yeah, I never saw myself as a professional athlete. I kind of knew, hey,
Sure.
you're not that great. I had picked up a little injury in high school and in my senior year, and it kept me away from basketball, which I'd really enjoyed basketball. During that time, I got to introduced to a sports medicine person.
Okay.
We went to the big town of Wichita and met Dr. Lynch, sports medicine, and she was a part physio, part sportsman. It was this weird space. I was like, that's pretty cool. You know, they're talking about how they're going to cast me, and there's going to be exercises that I can do, and there's a healing time for this ligament in my ankle. And that was really kind of cool to me. And I thought, that's a pretty cool gig that they're helping these athletes get back on the field. So that was a switch for me that physical therapy might be a road to market there, and start learning about PT school. And it was very difficult to get in. You had to have an undergraduate degree or start an undergraduate degree. So I began looking for opportunities to do that, and thinking myself as I'm going to be a physical therapist.
Okay.
I think
so
that
it
was
already on the brain.
That was early. That part was early on, because I could leverage some of that stuff that we talked about that I thought was really cool. And she helped me. You know, she was doing this for me. This was to help me get back to what was important to me, because I said, look, I need to play basketball. All right, well, surgery's probably not going to get you back. Let's try this to see if you can get back to basketball. So that was really interesting to me. So yeah, that was 1988, 89. For me, in the sports medicine world. I'm gonna be a physio.
Yeah. What did parents and family think of that, as far as, like, if you're a fifth generation farmer as well?
Luckily, I had
Your brother was the
stepbrother.
succession
I
plan.
had a sister that was interested in that part of the ranch. I think my parents knew that, hey, he might come home on the weekends and help drive tractor during the summer, but this kid's he wants to go do something else. But hey, the farm is here. The ranch will be here, either when you fail or when you find out that, hey, this was more fun than you thought it was at the time.
Yeah. So then this was the knee injury and caused the reoccurring injury.
Yeah. So the knee,
So
if I pick up that little injury, I get to college. I have this physique that I've developed through bucking bales and digging post holes and playing multiple sports.
Right.
So I was able to leverage this kind of developed athleticism and farm strength, functional strength. And it paid great dividends for me up to a point, but I was still undersized. I was 170 pounds as a wide receiver at 6'2" in the Big 8 conference. You wonder why I got broken in half, right? And I met this guy, this strength coach guy, and he started to teach me how to lift weights. I lifted weights, we had a universal machine in the high school. And so I started to see my body kind of start to change a little bit. I wished I would have had that going in, but it really started to change. I remember coming back playing in a 3-on-3 basketball tournament after my freshman year at K-State, having lifting weights and training. And unbelievable. I was jumping, I was dunking a basket. I was doing all these, I was like, and I had this confidence, and somebody said, what is going on with you? And I was like, I don't know. But this consistent training, and you blend strength and nutrition and all that together, has a pretty cool effect. And I'm a pretty confident guy when I came home. But yeah, that sophomore year started to pick up injuries as I started to play more and get into the higher elements of competition. And I picked up a knee injury, and I'd just broken into playing time. And again, I was terrible. So don't get me wrong. It's not like I'm all whatever. I break in because somebody else gets hurt. So I get a chance. I'm like, this is my opportunity. Yeah. I get to play. And in the second game of that season, I pick up a little meniscus injury, and I get to be invested back into this sports medicine thing. And the surgeons say, hey, look, you know what? We need to clean that out. If we clean it out, within 10 days to 2 weeks, you'll be back on the field. I'm like, let's go. Let's go. Yeah. Get me going. And I ended up with a really bad postoperative infection in that knee. So bad that I ended up having to drop out of school for a semester to go figure out how to stop this from eating my entire leg. Oh, wow. So it was a bad deal.
Yeah. Just a freak kind of infection.
It was a freak thing. It was the early days of, if your listeners remember, MRSA, this methyl resistant Staph aureus thing that they couldn't figure out how to kill it. And so they got really scared. I think it scared me. It scared my parents. I know I was in the hospital for 6 straight weeks.
When you're like 19, 20 years old?
Yeah, this is my second year. So this would have been my, after my redshirt year, my sophomore year.
Thinking you might lose your leg.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And that's when Dad said, hey, let's go out. So we ended up going out and to the Center for Infectious Disease Control there's the Mayo Clinic at the time out in Arizona, an offshoot of the Mayo in Minnesota. And again, got back involved with sports medicine, and I followed some follow-up surgeries, lost a lot of motion in my knee, went through a whole rigmarole, but the idea was I'm going to come back, right? And I came back, and I just couldn't function. I mean, no matter how much I knew where and by that time, the talent level had just done this at Kansas State. There was people like Kevin Lockett. Some of your listeners might remember. He was a freshman at Kansas State as a receiver. Mitch Running, Chad. I mean, the talent level did this. I was already way down here, and I said, hey, coach, this ain't working out too good for me. I still want to help. Is there some way I can help? Because I'm not helping on the field. And Coach Snyder said, yeah, your ability to learn, a pattern recognition, your ability, you could probably help us in other ways. Maybe leverage this instead of your legs. And so they gave me a chance in my last year to finish up that last year on scholarship as a student assistant. That's great. And so I was able to leverage. It was really cool for me to be able to leverage something that wasn't my legs anymore. It was my brain to help us succeed. Ended up, as an example of the Oklahoma ties again, there was another student assistant at the time that had used up all of his eligibility that was on the defensive side of the student assistant's role, and his name was Brent Venables. So he was a teammate of mine and had leveraged all of his eligibility. And man, you talk about a football guy. I mean, this guy he still is a football guy. I was a football guy, but I kind of liked that sports medicine that, I wasn't, Venables would be waking up early every morning to study the games of the high schools that we were going to recruit. And I'm over here reading, journal articles about rehab and strength training and nutrition so I started to see that, hey, you know what, this football thing, that might not be my why. And Venables helped me. So in other words, Brent helped me decide, you know what, I'm not going to stay in sports in that way. I'm going to leverage it in a different way. And so I went one way, he went the other way. He stayed at Kansas State, and I started looking for ways to feed that, that instinct to learn the other side of the game.
You mentioned getting on scholarship.
Yeah.
How was that moment?
Probably the worst thing that could have ever happened to me.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, tell that story.
And I say again, I'm so blessed. It was amazing. I was a walk-on. Yeah. When you're a walk-on, you have you kind of have this weird chip on your shoulder. Yeah, absolutely. This mentality that guy's got a scholarship that I want. Yeah. I'm going to take it from him, not from him.
No, but that's your motivation. Yeah.
It was a walk-on edge that every day, you came in and you had a little bit more grit. You had a little bit more, you know what? There were times that I didn't go in the training room. I was that hamstring. I'm pretty sure I just pulled that hamstring. But you know what? I'm going to fake it because I'm not going to miss a rep. And I'll be honest with you, I lost some of that when I was put on scholarship. Okay. And I didn't realize it until it was a little farther along, but I was like, man, I have now lost that edge because now I've arrived. I got the job. I got the job. So I say, that walk-on mentality is something that I leveraged and I try to go back and rechannel as much as I can. That nothing's promised. You don't have the nice locker. You're over there in the other locker you're sharing with another dude. You don't have the same equipment. Yeah. They treated us great at K-State, but the idea was you made do with what you had because you were trying to get to that. And so, the scholarship thing, amazing blessing and amazing curse, all at the same thing.
It's a real thing though, right? And when you go on later in your career and you're dealing with all these professional athletes, who have played in the NFL, MLB, Olympians, all this stuff, they all, for the most part, come with those shiny contracts and that, whatever it is, like it's a motivation. And, there's a lot of, look at Roger Federer, Tiger Woods, and the greats who have done it for so long, Djokovic now, like there's something within them that is they're self-motivated, but there's clearly that chip that's always been there. Whereas I'm sure you've seen it over your career, like someone's just got, that shoe deal and they're like, I don't have to work so hard. I'm just going to happy ride the bench or do whatever. And you're just like, you're done in 2 to 3 years because you lost that edge.
Gosh, don't lose it. And we saw it in the Olympians that we trained as well. Some Jamaican sprinters that would, if you listen to their story, the reason that they were so engaged in sprinting at such an early age was they saw that as an opportunity to get off the island, to get to the States, to mature. I mean, those are real stories of people there's a reason I don't want to lose that edge. Yeah. And so, that scholarship thing, others, probably the scholarship story is probably the opposite. It motivated, it gave them sort of the inner workings to really express themselves. For me, I don't know that I would have had the same grit, though, had I not been a walk-on. So I'm very thankful for my time as a walk-on and that I did that. And I still try to draw from that. I try to channel that every single day, the walk-on, #walk-on mentality. If you ever see any of my X feeds, you'll see that sometimes when I'm like, man, I got to channel that today.
Yeah. It's funny. I was going to ask this question related to something else, but he's also was a walk-on at Oklahoma State. Blake Jarwin, who also got injured, played at the Cowboys and is now retired, I think, because of his injuries. Blake was a walk-on at Oklahoma State, and he told some great stories. And this is what I was referring to was he told the story about because he needed to put on weight and ended up being a receiver and then into the line and all these things. And he said that his coach at Oklahoma State made him eat like a jar of peanut butter every night. And he's like, you can eat whatever he wanted, but just finish that jar of peanut butter. And he's like, he gained an outrageous amount of weight and needed to. Was there any stories from your K-State days of like, hey, I need to gain a lot of weight, or, from being 170 to help my body or get into position? Probably fortunate for you, you didn't end up, you had that switch of position. Otherwise, maybe you did have to gain weight. He went the opposite way. But fellow walk-on as well. Like, do you have any stories from that?
Personally, in my background as now working with a lot of elite athletes and Olympians, especially Olympians, I have a great story of Olympians that had to create, they had to do some things that were very uncomfortable and that was iterative. They had to build off. It was a compounding interest thing. In other words, if they didn't do this, they wouldn't get to this, they wouldn't get to this. So they had to look way down the line. A bobsled athlete comes to mind that wanted to transition from being a receiver in college to talent transfer to get in as a push athlete in USA bobsled. And one of the first things that they said, you're fast, you're explosive, you're going to have to gain a lot of weight. We need a heavy sled. And that was one of the things he never had to do that before. He was always 180, 190.
In great shape.
And great shape, explosive. Yeah, be all that, but now be 220. And so it was this first time that he was kind of flipped around like, holy cow, I've got to maintain all those other things, my speed, my explosiveness and all that, and bring 30 more pounds to whatever, 25 or 30 more pounds to the party. And the commitment that he had to make to not only maintain and improve those things that he's already really good at while those other things were going on included things like he's no longer eating because it's like he likes it. It's very strategic and it's very, where am I going to get the biggest amount of calories? Because I only have so much in here. And so it became a very strategic approach. It was a fueling strategy.
Sure,
It no longer was eating for him.
Yeah.
It was fueling. I got to put X number of calories in my body, no matter what.
And I can perform.
Exactly right. It wasn't because he wanted to. It was because he needed that. He needed to do it. It was a process. And there were several of those along the way that, we've got to do all these other things behind the scenes that is not fun, but it's part of that process that is getting me to what is fun, which was for him making the number 2 bobsled in the Sochi Olympics. He doesn't get there unless he gains those 20 plus pounds and does those things that he's already really good at and he enjoys. And so those pieces of the process have been all along the way over the 30 years.
That's the fun thing that you've seen too, that we'll get to in a little bit. But it's seeing the sports crossover, right? The sprinting into bobsledding, the sprinting into some of there's a guy on the USA Sevens rugby team who was not a very fast sprinter, but didn't make the cut. And then he went to, I was like, hey, can you catch a rugby ball? Yes, go. And he's like the fastest guy ever in rugby. But, there's so many the really interesting stories that, you see these athletes that, they might not be, there's you've seen all the occasions. It's so cool to see that. It's fascinating. And they're doing sports that, they're probably, like I said, going to the Winter Olympics when that's the last thing they thought they'd be doing, right? But they have speed and it translates. Back to you, though. Tell me a little bit about then of graduating and thinking, I'm going to go, PT school sounds like the next logical thing to do.
Yeah, sure.
How does that go? Where do you go to?
Yeah, I applied to PT school and don't get in.
Wow.
Sorry. I'm like, I went 4 years. I spent the first 2 or 3 of my years really focusing on football.
Sure.
That whole photographic memory thing, I took that a little bit for granted and didn't go to class. I wasn't,
got away with it.
I'm going to get, B's. And nobody ever said, hey, by the way, PT school is kind of tough to get in. And so when my advisor looked at my grades and he said, this is not, give it a try. So didn't get in. What do you do? Well, gosh, do I do it again? Do I go get a job? Do I do it again? And he said, hey, you know what you ought to think about is graduate school. Go a little deeper into those areas that you're passionate about, that exercise physiology, that strength and conditioning, that piece of that puzzle that you're interested in. I think the graduate school might be a good choice for you. And then you can maybe, reapply. So I said, cool. Where are the good ones here, regionally? I didn't have a whole lot of choices to go with my grades, but he said, start heading south. And so I just started heading south from Manhattan, Kansas. And the first stop was Oklahoma State. They wouldn't let me in.
Wow.
They'd let me pay. They'd let me pay. But I was like, hey, I need a graduate research assistantship. I need to do something to kind of, and they said, you could go to school here, but we don't have any GA positions for you.
setback after setback.
And I was like, what? So I kept going south, and I ended up in Norman.
Yeah.
And I met a guy named Michael Bembin, who at the time was a researcher in exercise physiology, somewhat known, but not, not this amazing, thing yet. And he said, yeah, you could be a GA here. We could learn about exercise physiology. He kind of liked the fact that I had a sports background. And I didn't know why until I got down there, but I became a GA, or graduate research assistant, and a teaching assistant for him in the department there in Norman.
Yeah.
And within a month of me being there, he had figured out that obviously I'd played football at Kansas State. So I must know how to work in that environment. I've got some calluses on my hands for college athletics. And he said, look, there's a couple of research projects that we've been really trying to work with the elite athletes over in collegiate athletics to use them as sort of a comparison group or to learn about them. You mind going in and pitching this? It's sort of the way it was set up. He goes, I've got a connection. I'll introduce you. And so basically a canary in the coal mine. To go in and they'd been doing some work, but it was kind of like, hey, look, this is an opportunity. Sure. Why not ask them to do a double blind placebo controlled, let's just shoot the moon here and see what happens. For whatever reason, it goes all the way back, I think, to my K-State days, is they gave me a benefit of the doubt that this guy came from that program and he gets it. He knows what this is about. He's not going to screw this up. We'll give him a chance. And so I was able then to pull in and begin to leverage some of what I wanted to learn about anyway, in a very practical setting with the athletes at Oklahoma. And so I'm a graduate teaching assistant, research assistant with the lab. So I'm running the lab during the day and teaching classes. Early morning, I'm over with the football and the baseball and the wrestling team, as it turns out.
Put that practical in.
Doing practical. Yeah. And I was able to run some of my research through that work. And then I'd go back and I'd do the lab work and things in the evening. And it was a back and forth. And ultimately it turned into 2 jobs. I was a GRA and I was a GA over in athletics as a strength conditioning coach. And I'm able to now, I'm doing these cool studies. I got to do a study on the wrestling team, looking at chromium picolinate. Figured that one out, how they allowed me to do a placebo-controlled, it's crazy, right? I'm going to give these wrestlers at the time, I think they were top 10 in the country. John Kading was an All-American. I mean, these guys, this is a big-time wrestling program. The research community was looking at a supplement called chromium picolinate. It's a supplement, a trace mineral that we felt like we weren't getting enough in our diet. It could help with insulin sensitivity, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe it could help with lean body mass or strength or power. Let's find out. Who can we find out? Yeah, why not? Go to a top 10 wrestling program and say, hey, let's split your group down the middle randomly, and I'm going to assign half of them a supplement that has chromium picolinate in it, and half of them
just nothing.
A placebo that has, nothing. I'm taking part of their training on, the resistance training. And this is all in the off season. It was about 14 weeks. And so basically for 14 weeks, I show up with my little pillbox that's already been kind of randomized, and I don't even know what it is. I don't know who's getting what. Like, I don't know. It's completely double blinded. So I don't know who's getting what. I just know everybody's taking this as part of their vitamins, and that's all IRB approved and all this. But the basics of it is I'm blind too.
Yeah. And this is 90s?
This would have been 90s, 93, 94, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So at the end of 14 weeks, we go back and recheck, all these different parameters to find out. And then you find out who actually had the placebo or who actually got the chromium. And talk about a leap of faith for the coaches, for the athletes, for the IRB at Oklahoma University, for my mentors. I mean, that was a big undertaking. And I mean, it was really cool. We got published. I mean, somebody just referenced my work the other day. I'm like, wow, this is actually not just ending up in some leather-bound book. This thing is actually being used to potentially anyway, the knowledge of how to use some of these supplements in the future. So I was like, this is really valuable to not just me to get out of school, to have a graduate degree. And so that's how that ended up.
That was your first, sounds like that was one of your first, like, practical, like, this is what I want to do. Another reinforcement.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm like actually making a difference, not
making
just learning.
Not just learning. Yeah. It's a great combination of I'm learning. And then when you learn, you find out there's another 100 questions that are unanswered. I didn't learn anything. I learned this one little thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy cow, it's frustrating and it's empowering all at the same time. And it showed me too, there's never a stop to this. There's not like this finish line to this learning thing. And I hated it for an instant. And then I was like, this is kind of cool. Yeah. That we're going to chip away at this. And I'm going to be able to say, look, as of today, this is kind of what the evidence is saying. With respect, I might have to come back next year and change it.
Yeah, because your life's work.
I mean, it's gonna modulate. It's gonna change, and being okay with that ambiguity a little bit was still is a challenge for me. But it stimulated in me the ability. Can we leverage evidence in some way to shape better practice so that we do a little less of this, a little more of that, make it a little, optimize it for these athletes like me. What is the one thing, the two things, the three things, the big rocks that I need to move, and cut out the noise of the 6, 7, 8, 9? If I can do that for others, I think they would find tremendous value in that. I know I would, and I know our athletes did as well. And so, that turned me on to this concept. And I thought, okay, great, this is what I'm going to do. And then my advisor said, okay, you've about finished up your graduate degree. The football team wants you to come on as a coach, strength conditioning coach at the time. You still have this dream of being a physio? I was like, yeah, I kind of do. He said, well, why don't you apply to PT school? And so one of my, on my thesis committee was a guy named Mark Anderson. He is at the OU Health Sciences Center, and said, yeah, apply and see if you get in. And so I applied and didn't get in again. Didn't get in again. So
even though you had all these,
I had all this stuff, and he said, no, but you know what? I think you'll be able to get in the next year if you apply again. Sure. But it gave me an extra year to kind of leverage some of my learnings with the practical, and ended up going to PT school after that. So I ended up, as crazy as it was, I went to physical therapy school while I was an assistant strength conditioning coach at OU, which again force-fed me to bring practice and knowledge together, and gritty and stupid, crazy hours, and no money, and
but you're having the best time ever.
Best time of my life. I'm in PT school now. I'm coming out. I've got 3 degrees. Now what are you gonna do?
Yeah, but you've been working with, I mean, pretty epic football teams and great athletes and wrestling and all the things, and learning on the job, and getting to understand all of the things practically as well, which is, I mean, that's what you want to do, right?
That's exactly right.
And then seeing back to what you said earlier, kind of what Dr. Lynch did for you and others that have just seen you help, they've been helping you, and now you're helping these, some of them may go on to win national championships or conference championship, whatever, or just be great human beings. I had a tiny part in that.
Had a part in that, and didn't want to stand up on the podium with them.
Sure. Yeah.
I felt really good about never being on the podium. I don't know why. That was weird. It was almost uncomfortable for me to ever feel, oh, get up here, let's take a picture. We won this tournament. Or no, the football team was terrible at OU.
Oh, at that time was terrible.
Terrible. And there was a coach named John Blake, God rest his soul. And as I was finishing up physical therapy school and was looking to how am I going to leverage this? John Blake said, hey, why don't you come to work on our staff, and we'll create this position that's really this cool thing. Yeah, within weeks, John Blake's staff, everybody gets cleaned out. I end up on the East Coast opening sports medicine clinics for a company called Health South.
Wow.
And was out of it. I was like, I better go out and pay off some of the student debt, have a job that I can, have some control over. And another example where Oklahoma brings me back is within the year of being on the East Coast, I get a call from, at the time, his name was Dr. Brock Schnabel. He was the team doc at OU. And he said, hey, you know what? You had this idea for, combining sports medicine and sports performance. He said, we got a project going on here at Oklahoma City that you might be interested in. And it was at Cassidy School. And he said, this Clay Bennett has raised some money, and Aubrey McClendon, they've raised some money to build this sports medicine, sports performance, locker rooms to really level up Cassidy School, so we can compete with the Southwest Preparatory Conference teams down in Dallas. Would you be interested in coming back and helping us build that? And so again, the Oklahoma tie, pulls me back, another visionary deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And had a great run with Cassidy School, and taking that sort of from the ground floor, building programs and people and process to support Cassidy School's sporting programs.
Yeah.
But it continues to pull me back into the state of Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. But again, it was a visionary thing. It was my ability to leverage that cross-discipline approach that allowed us to be very, very successful, I think, at Cassidy School and here in Oklahoma at a time when there's a few schools that were kind of doing it at the high schools. Yeah. That was new. That was somewhat pioneering for Cassidy and the leadership there to say, to be competitive, to help these kids. And what a blessing that was. Inducted into their Hall of Fame earlier this year.
Athletics Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I'm on the wall, and I get goosebumps thinking about that. I made an impact in some folks. We made an impact in people's lives. 99.9% of them never played sports after high school.
Doesn't matter.
That wasn't the impact. You know what I mean? That was the impact, was what we were doing there for lives, for being a better performance in what's important to you. Yeah. So Oklahoma tie just keeps it keeps pulling me back into Oklahoma.
How long were you at Cassidy then building that? And where do you go to now?
I was 3 years at Cassidy.
Okay.
And we had this basically built up from the ground up. I was doing some adjunctive teaching in the Health Science Center, teaching the new physio students how to, use exercise physiology. I was doing a little physical therapy with McBride Clinic as well as part. So I had it all set up, this amazing ecosystem, and we were winning and doing amazing things, and loved that job. Best job I ever had, probably.
Wow. Yeah.
And I get a call from my former boss at Oklahoma, who was now at the Dallas Cowboys. And he said, "Is this it?"
Yes.
And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "I mean, you tell me if this is it, if this is the spot and you're going to stick right there and that's where you want to go, great." I said, "Why do you ask?" And he says, "Well, I've got a spot down here." He said, "It doesn't pay anything. There's no guarantee that we're going to be around, year over year, but it will allow you to truly leverage that stuff that you told me a long time ago that you wanted to leverage. You haven't leveraged it at the professional ranks. You've had college experience. Now you've got high school, middle school, grade school, physical therapy. You've ticked a lot of boxes there, but guess what? You don't have." He sold me. He said, "You don't have professional experience. You've not worked at that elite level." And he said, "This would be by the way, it's the Dallas Cowboys. You interested?"
Off the greatest 90s decade.
I was like, Barry had come in and gone, Switzer had gone. And so, he said, "Yeah, there's an opportunity here. The guy's going to leave. He's going to take a different position. It's kind of an intern.
Sure.
It's kind of a spot.
You're a foot in the door."
It's a foot in the door. Yeah. He said, "If you're interested, I said, "Oh, let me think about it," because you got 24 hours. He goes, "You got 24 hours or we're going to have to go to the next guy." So that was a hard conversation. I say, "Look, Cassidy School, you guys have been amazing to me. Yeah. I'll never forget this time. And I've got to take this. I got to take this on." And they were very respectful of it and made it very easy for me to say yes, and packed up everything, sold my little house in Edmond, and packed up the Ford F-150 and drove to Big D to work for the Cowboys.
So is that early 2000s?
That would have been 2002 or 3, somewhere in there. The years escape me. Wow. And we get there, and within 6 weeks, we all get fired. So Dave Campo's the coach. Not losing, you lose. We were on a flight. I think we lost to the Washington Redskins. Amazing, right? Now I'm before I was coming out of the football tunnel at Cassidy School, high school, playing Fort Worth Country Day. Yeah. And within a series of weeks, I'm coming out of the tunnel, at FedEx Field to play the Redskins. And I remember we lost that game. And I remember on the flight back, it was sort of I think we're all going to get fired. Don't worry, the guys in Washington, they're probably going to get fired too. So there may be a chance for us to. Right. I'm thinking, I just got here. This is nuts. What did I just do?
6 weeks in, I mean, those first 6 weeks, do you feel like you're learning from the fire hose, or do you feel like that you're just applying what you've learned and everything to just older, better athletes?
I wasn't doing anything. I was washing shakers. I was washing shaker bottles. With a grin and pride in my chest. I'm cleaning shaker bottles. I'm sweeping the weight room. That's what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm a physio. I'm a this. I'm a that. No, make yourself useful.
Learning from? Who are the big physios there that you were like?
You've got the folks in the sports medicine side of the building, the Britt Browns and the Jim Mowers. They're some of the best ATCs in the NFL history. They get all these awards. They're there in house. Joe Jurassic and the strength conditioning side of the house. Joe was one of the longtime NFL, God rest his soul, in the NFL as a longtime strength conditioning coach. You get those two pieces of it combined with these players. You got the Darren Woodsons of the world. You've got I got a chance to be around Emmitt Smith in the last part of his work there. And then this transition happens where, we're all getting fired. Chances are everybody's going to get cleaned out. As fate would have it, Bill Parcells comes in and wants to bring his own kind of crew in. And for whatever reason was unable to bring the strength and conditioning component on. And so Coach Jurassic got he's the best option for us. So let's stick with Joe. But Joe, you can't have a bunch of assistants. You can have, basically 2 guys, and you can't have much. So somehow, some way, I got the ability to stay on as minimum earning, again, grunt in strength conditioning. And now I get to learn from a Bill Parcells. And how do you transition a program that was this great thing and now it's really kind of fallen into the dumpster? How do you twist that around? How do you bring in culture and rebuild a culture? How do you create within the team structure? You've got these young up-and-comers, the Roy Williamses of the world, back to the Oklahoma ties, bringing in some of his old the old guard from his experiences, the the Keyshawn Johnsons and the Dan Campbells, who now everybody knows Dan Campbell, bringing in those pieces to gird up this culture. I got a master class in vision again, but now rebuild and restructure and culture building, combined with the expertise in strength conditioning and those amazing sports medicine folks. That again, I stayed out of that way. I was like, look, I'm here I'll wash shakers and clean floors, and gradually found my role to kind of fit in and to optimize some of those things, just to fit in and be that piece that can help things go. And I learned a great amount from those players. You mentioned, what did I learn from? Yeah, the players taught me as much as anything. Okay. They taught me about some of those, the grit and the perseverance and the process and some of the things that made them great. I was able to really glean from that experience. So yeah, the learning was as much less about technical and tactical. I would say there was a big chunk of that. Yeah, it was as much about culture and about professionalism and those pieces of it. So yeah, that was amazing. How old were you at that point? Oh gosh, it had been 2003, 4. Born in 70, was I 33, 32, 33, 34.
Yeah. So pretty like pivotal moment in your adult career, and
amazing.
To be there in that age, but also to be a sponge to all these incredible athletes, right? And in such a place where they have everything at their fingertips as far as whatever it is. I'm sure the budget was have whatever you want, like you're as far as nutrition and systems and all the things, but like you said, you can't buy culture or grit.
Culture, grit, team systems, the strength conditioning and the athletic training, watching how they were able to work together in the best interest. I mean, there were some things that were just inherent. Now I can see that now you see in graphs and charts and everything. I was seeing in real time play out that I would have never learned had I just continued my role. That was it was a master class, and a master class in screwing up. I mean, I got my butt chewed 10 ways to Sunday within 2 weeks of being on site at the Cowboys, because I was at the peak of the Dunning-Kruger, peak of Mount Stupid. I would just come from this. I got all these degrees and bam.
You're nothing here. You're sweeping the floor.
You just screwed that up 30 different ways, and you don't even realize how bad you screwed it up. So there was this piece of humility that I needed back, and pull me off of the peak of Mount Stupid back into, dang, I need to learn a whole lot more. And the more I began to learn, the more I learned I don't know. And so it rekindled some of that learning. Like I said, I feel like I went through and got another level understanding on high performance sport. And again, that was a good three years of time. It wasn't going to fulfill me. There was something there that I was like, this was a piece of a bigger puzzle. I needed this. Yeah. I don't see myself being an NFL strength conditioning coach or a physio, or I see myself leveraging this. I'm supposed to go leverage all this now to go in and serve a wider group, a group like me as a high school kid or an injured athlete that's needing. I want to leverage all that, rob from them to give to everybody, including the elites. And so that's what I did. I made that jump to leave the NFL, get out of that carousel environment, and go out into the business of sports performance.
Who was you mentioned, the guy who hires you down, takes you down to Dallas, and clearly there's a mentor there. What other mentors are around you as well, but then also kind of help you take that leap of, it sounds like you knew internally, I don't want to be here forever. And there's this like sort of bigger piece of the puzzle. Let's go put this into sports performance on my own. But who are those key factors around that time that says, give you a little nudge as well?
Yeah. The first one was the same guy, Coach Jurassic, that hires me at the Cowboys, that allowed me to be at OU. Yeah. He basically showed me the door at the Cowboys. He basically said, hey,
it's time.
You need to go. It was the same thing. You've told me before that this is great and all, but you need to hit the door. And so he showed me the door. He didn't fire me, but he nudged me out and said, hey, it's time to move along. There's one of the famous athletes that I got to work with and became really good friends is Darren Woodson. He was an all pro, should be in the Hall of Fame, NFL Hall of Fame at some point. He was a mentor of me in a way that said, look, this sports performance thing, that would be good for high school kids. That would be good for this. It would be good. He saw not only the benefit to the elite athletes, but there's potentially a business there. And so he mentored me a lot in those early days to how could you leverage this? And we had a lot of really good discussions around how to invest this into a business. And I thought at one point, hey, he and I might go into business together. You know, this might be cool for him. And I ended up meeting a guy named Michael Johnson, who was a famous track sprinter, gold shoes, Michael Johnson. The Michael Johnson.
Right.
And he was at the time looking to create a business, just so happens in the Dallas area, to do just that, to leverage this performance concept for everybody. And I got an interview with Michael somehow, some way. And within 10 minutes of us sitting down, I was like, all right, first of all, this guy's another one of these high performers. I can probably learn a lot from him. His process has worked. He's interested in leveraging this for a lot of the same reasons that I am, and sort of became another part of that mentorship in a unique way. So there was those mentors along the way. I'll be honest though, you know, I learned from the athletes just keep coming back. They were all mentors. The kids at Cassidy School, the 12-year-old that I couldn't get to skip a rope, that was a mentorship. He didn't know it at the time. The knee surgeries that wouldn't get better, they were mentor. I've had so much of that. I still have mentors. I'm still screwing up every day. I suck. So I look at those things as opportunities to learn. But along the way there, that pathway got me into this sports performance industry now. And then you begin to have these interactions of these other elite. You mentioned Man United. You're a Man United fan. Truth be told, first year Michael and I are in business together in McKinney, he flies me to Doha for this Leader in Sports conference. He says, hey, we're going to sit down and talk to these folks at Manchester United because I think they would like to send some players over to us to train in the off season. I was like, cool. That was the one sport I had no experience with.
What's Manchester United?
None. Right? At the time, Man United is the number one sports franchise in the world.
Yeah. Soccer's not big in the States.
No. And I fly over, and this is truth. I sit down. Michael and I are sitting down, and we're at this table, and there's this guy we're having lunch, and I can't understand a word he says. I mean, he's talking, he's got this thick, accent. I'm sitting here going, I mean, they set this meeting up. This must be pretty important stuff. A, I didn't know how big Man United was. B, I had no idea what he was saying. But what I did understand after the conversation was that this guy at the end of the table that I didn't understand, he said, I'd like for some of our lads to come over there in the off season to train the way you all train. And he said, specifically, I'd like for you to train them kind of like you train the NFL guys. And I heard that loud and clear. It's like, this dude, he's supposed to be this big soccer. You know who it was, right? It's Sir Alex Ferguson.
You sat and had lunch.
That's Sir Alex Ferguson. I don't know who he is. It's this guy named Sir Alex Ferguson talking about, and sitting next to him is Rennie Muhlenstein, who's at the time, the reserve team coach.
Oh my gosh.
And they're talking about these lads.
You can't understand a word because he's thick Scottish accent. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not impressed. I'm like,
it's just some old guy who's just.
Whatever. But somebody told me he's pretty big time in soccer world. So who knows? But I did hear that. He said, I want him to come over.
Interesting.
And it's just more of as an experiment. It's more of a, hey, let's, but what I heard was get him out of Carrington, get him out of that setting for 6 weeks. And all they're going to focus on is being a better athlete. And they're not going to be focusing on being better for soccer or better. It's just athletics. I want you to focus on that. I want my midfielders to train with the running backs. I want my central defender to train with some of the, defensive backs or defensive tight. I can't remember he had already thought through this. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool. But I knew enough about soccer at the time to know that that's a skill sport.
Yeah. And were they owned by the Kraft family at that point? Man United? Not the Glazers. No, sorry, the Glazers. Were they owned by the Glazers?
The way we were introduced was through our partnership with Nike.
Oh,
they were a Nike club.
Yes, they were. Yeah, okay.
And so Nike had made that connection. Sure. Obviously, Nike would love to have a great connection with them over in the States. But no, so they basically sent these players over in that first off season. And as a soccer fan, you can understand if it's not with the ball, it's not soccer, right? So it's and I kind of knew that at least. I was like, okay, coach, you're going to send a skills coach over because I know that if they're not playing soccer, it's not soccer training. And another great lesson, he said, I want you to flatten all the soccer balls. Don't even let them play soccer. Really? He said, don't even let them watch soccer on TV. Yeah. And I was like, wow, talk about a mentorship moment there. He wanted them to focus on the athleticism. He said, that's one of the reasons I'm sending them away.
They're already the best in the world at playing soccer.
They have the best physical trainer. I mean, Tony Strudwick at Man U, one of the best physical prep coaches. It's not like I have any secret sauce. They wanted to pull them out of that and train agnostic necessarily to the sport. Okay. They wanted to be focusing on athleticism that they could apply when they came back. And again, I steal that to this day. I'm like, wow, those are some raw ingredients things that will pay great dividends for them in a lot of different ways. So that's
really cool.
that's an example of some of that leveraging that mentorship in that moment. That's the only time I ever got to speak with Sir Alex Ferguson. But I tell that story and people are like, wow, what a amazing blessing.
Right. Like
I didn't even know it at the time.
That's the equivalent of me sitting across from like Bill Belichick 10 years ago, right? Like I know who he is now, but 10 years ago. Like,
I didn't deserve to sit there. And didn't deserve them to send players to us.
Yeah.
I didn't know it. It was that Dunning-Kruger. I'm at the peak of Mount Stupid. I think he saw that in me and he's like, good, this guy's not going to try to turn them into soccer players. Yeah. We've got the best in the world doing that. Focus on this other stuff.
Wow.
In fact, put them in with the NFL guys.
Yeah.
And you talk about a great environment.
Yeah.
The NFL guys and the United players training together.
That's so awesome. What a great group of people to just see how they react and else, but also to see which of the soccer players, football players for me, the athletes, as far as just like, there's probably a few instances where they really surprise themselves because they're used to just running around and, delicate little movements or whatever. But when you talk about, football players rarely are known for their general athletic strength, right? Versus the NFL. When you see the NFL guys who are giants, like they're man mountains and they push weight. Football players are dainty and like, agility's there, which makes sense when you put, some of the wingers and some of the strikers with, the receivers and defensive backs because of their agility and their side to side speed, right? But yeah, I'm sure there's some great moments.
They still talk about that. I still get, that was so much fun for us to, the locker room. Yeah. Now they're in a mixed locker room. So we got NFL and English Premier League soccer players in the same that locker room, the jabber that would go back and forth. They loved it. They loved the dynamic of this, just putting them in. It wasn't the training. I mean, my training was probably terrible, but it was just putting them in an environment and creating sort of these constraints. Let's go over these hurdles today and see how. I wasn't coaching. These guys are amazing. It was just putting them in these environments. And for the soccer guys would look over and go, God, that guy's, he's 275 pounds and he's moving like that. Yeah. That's amazing to me. And I'd hear the same thing from the NFL guys. Do you see how is that guy able to jump like that? Or how's he that quick? How's he able to do when they would do certain skills based, things? They were like, they were enamored with each other. They weren't going to say that to each other out in front of everybody. They were busting each other's chops. But behind the scenes, unbelievable respect. And these younger EPL guys had guaranteed contracts.
Oh yeah.
And so they would rib the NFL guys. They're like, what's going on with you guys? This is ridiculous. I can't believe your sports.
You might not have a job next year.
That's exactly right. So there was so much really interesting back and forth growth for both sides of that. The NFL guys got just as much out of the EPL guys as the other way around.
Wow. Yeah. So the business then that you ended up with Michael Johnson was that going into just having a facility where you could really, your own facility, you could really bring people in, and that was, the businesses people are paying you to.
That's right.
Yeah.
High school kids.
Which now is normal. There's institutes all over the world, right?
Yeah.
High-end performance. And you talk about high school kids who are going to prep places to go to university, which is, what's the big one in Florida?
IMG Academy.
All these places. But back then, Michael had a vision.
There was a few of them that were there, and we wanted to knock those folks off, the IMGs of the world. Michael had done some work at IMG. Yeah. There was a place called Exos. Mark Verstegen was a genius in this space too, and they were kind of the peak, the pinnacle of that space. But you want to get better for your sport. You want to get better, whether you're a 12-year-old trying to get off the bench or you're, the next latest and greatest EPL player that's going to sign this humongous contract. We wanted to make sure we provided some level of a systems-based approach to be the best version of yourself, whether you came in for a one-day evaluation and we worked with your coach at distance, or there were people that would move and live in McKinney, for chunks of time, NFL Combine prep. People would move in and live there for 10 weeks to prepare for the NFL Combine. And then the drop off mom and pop that dropping off, little Johnny, because little Johnny wants to get off the bench on the soccer team and everything in between.
How big is that?
We were 30,000 square feet, I think, roughly, physical structure. We used a lot of different venues, off-site venues, indoor venues. At one point, we had coaches that were placed in various locations around the world. We had a coach at St. George's Park in the UK for a while, working with the FA, some of their grassroots work. I had a coach in Brazil at one point, working with Fluminense soccer. Feels very soccer-centric. China, we had several coaches located in China, working with some of the Winter Olympic sports as well there. So we began to sort of take our systems and our culture and things and satellite those things out, and then again create those hey, how can we replicate or how can we leverage some of this system
Yeah.
in your existing systems? And had a lot of fun. Had a lot of fun doing that. So it was the brick and mortar, and then there was sort of these fingers around the globe, which again pulls me back to Oklahoma roots. I didn't think I'd ever need a passport in my job.
Right. Freedom, Oklahoma.
You should see my passport. It is so thick. I mean, it's crazy how thick my it's nuts. And I got to spend time in the UK, a lot of time in the UK, and learned and met a lot of some high performance teams and folks in the UK that I still to this day interact with. And then around the globe, and in Brazil and in China and in Eastern, I mean, what I found was that Oklahoma grit, that Oklahoma, and that sounds cliche, and that stuff's powerful no matter where you're from. And you can pick it out. You can touch it and feel it. And man, I leveraged that Okie grit around the globe to my benefit. I mean, I think that's something that your listeners, hopefully your listeners that are from Oklahoma, they can also say, yeah, you're right. I've seen that same thing. I'm living proof. And I'll show you my passport. I can tell you a story where Okie grit, Okie resilience, all that stuff mattered at each of those stops along the way. And it still matters today.
Yeah. At this point in your career, you think like everything I have done has led me to this moment. I'm where I am. I'm happy. I'm building. I'm traveling the world. I am implementing everything I've learned.
15 years. We had 15-year business. And then I get a call.
Before we get to that call, greatest moments of those 15 years. There has to be good and bad. There's got to be some like big lessons learned, some Olympians, some traveling around the world, Man United soccer. Is that where you work for Williams? With Williams, like that's a big chunk of 15 years. I'm sure there was some amazing moments, and also being in Dallas for 15 years. I guess it was home base.
Yeah, we've
any days over those 15 years you'd like to relive?
Man, we had success working behind the scenes and working with teams. FC Dallas, we were Western Conference champions. It was FC Dallas. We were running the physical prep for FC Dallas for a few years there, and I really thought that was. And I didn't get as much out of that as I thought I would. We got to see some of our athletes win medals. We saw world championships. One of our athletes would be up on the podium and be getting the medal. And I'm thinking that didn't get me going either. Where I got goosebumps though, was when the parent of the kid, of the 12-year-old, would pull me aside and say, hey, we're going to sign up for another 12-week program. And I'm looking at the parent going, this kid's terrible. I'm going to say it, but I'm like, this kid's likely the worst athlete I've ever seen. But I mean, of course we want you to keep showing up. And I finally asked, this was a parent that had, his kid was playing football in North Dallas, big time football, junior high, trying to get into high school anyway. Ended up being a lifer. I mean, ended up being basically trained with us from junior high to high school and all on into before he went to college. And I said, why are you keep coming back? This is expensive. And he said, it was the mom and the dad. I can't remember who said it, but the mom and the dad said, he's gotten a little bit faster, and he's gotten, and they weren't really that enamored with the physical results. And I'm sitting here thinking, oh, great. And they said, but he's looking people in the eye now. He's focusing better. He's got all these intangible, weird things that, where did he get that from? Well, and then they start talking about his interaction with our coaches, Coach Kelly, Coach BMAC, they start naming coaches that have been influenced, and then other kids, and his confidence is, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. I'm like, are you kidding me? What this has done as a part of his ecosystem is going to pay forward for life for this kid. And it's not anything that I scripted in the dadgum workout. Zero. I wanted to hang my hat on this amazing program. I'm going to throw that away. It was that thing, that stuff. And so for me, all the stuff that, I've never won a Super Bowl. I've never been on a world championship team. I've never won anything in my life that's, gold medals and all that stuff. Those things right there. I tell you what. That's the stuff that that's the gold medals for me. So those are the moments, and I can tell you 3 or 4 of those stories that make me go, wow. Talk about the peak of Mount Stupid again. I thought I was making them faster and stronger, and come on, man.
Transforming confidence, like
things that we didn't know that was baked into
social things too, right? It's like, and when you look back on it now, right, it's easy to spot those things, but then when you're in it, right, when you're just like, no, this program today, we're going to do this, box jumps, whatever it is, cold plunge, whatever it is, and then, like I said, you get that wake up call when the parents come in and they're like, we don't care.
They're like, what are you talking?
Yeah, like
it's very humbling, very humbling.
I've trained so much to do this.
Yeah, oh my gosh, why did I go to all that time? I spent so much time on the physiology. The psychology beats the physiology every day. I mean, every stinking
That's got to be
day.
one of the most fascinating things over the career that you've had, is those examples of that Okie grit, but that also that person that comes in that, like I said, isn't necessarily the best athlete, but mentally they think they are the best in the entire world, and they have the most mental strength over everybody. Like, those are the examples that you've probably seen. You know,
No doubt about
those guys win more championships than the superstars.
No doubt about. And truth be told, everybody's got a kryptonite.
Sure.
Every single one of the supermen and women that they've all got a kryptonite. They've all got something that they really suck at. I promise you, they don't have it all dialed in. And that's encouraging I think that's something we can learn from elites and Olympians is they don't have it all dialed in. They're not eating perfectly every day and this and that. Maybe what you think that they're doing, or, oh, they really love to train. Some of them hate to train. They hate it. They like the sport. Let's leverage off of that and be encouraged by that. Like, look, we're kind of the same. I don't like to eat right, but if I can attach it to a why, maybe I'll do this instead of this, even though I'm still going to probably do a little bit of the wrong stuff occasionally. I'm hitching it to that, knowing I suck at nutrition, or I suck at rest, or you know what? I hate lifting those heavy weights. I like to go play my sport. I learned that as well, that these are super powered these are amazing human beings, and they're blessed with amazing talents. And you're right. They have amazing grit and process and all those things, but they're just like us. They have something that they suck at. There's something in there that they still struggle with, and they're very, very human.
Do you ever come across on your travels, do you ever run into Tim Grover at all?
Tim Grover was Michael Jordan's trainer. Through the Nike relationship, I think we rubbed shoulders once or twice at Nike HQ, but never worked with him. Never had I don't think I ever had a conversation with Coach Grover.
I mean, he's obviously written a couple of books, and
he's done a
bit of a legend.
Very much a legend. Okay. And several of those, Nike did a really good job as a partner of our company, and obviously a longtime supporter of Michael, in putting us together with those sort of thinkers, which was also a great experiential learning for me, was how Nike would create in the amalgam sort of these high performers. So it was a high performing coach with a high performing athlete, with a high performing musician, with a high performing artist, and put them and just mash it up and be able to glean from that. Really, some of that sort of thought process has been helpful. And Tim's obviously done a great job. There's so many of those athletes that I think when you start to hear their story, their personal story. Ndamukong Suh was an athlete of ours. I say an athlete of ours. Trained with us for the NFL Combine, played for the Detroit Lions and Tampa Bay. Amazing athlete. I see now that he's got a podcast on business. And so he's talking about his business acumen. But you hear all these same parallels to the things that made him great as an athlete. The preparedness. And I know that sounds really cliche, but it's out there. And I can tell you that's some of the same things that he's using in business to be successful are the same things that I saw in him as a day-to-day training with him for the NFL Combine. A lot of those parallels that I think that your fault, the listenership, absolutely. Maybe when you find those athletes, is learn a bit about them, their personals, and maybe how they've applied it to business. Again, robbing the mindset and the resiliency and the grit, not the athleticism maybe, but we can steal some of the clues to success from these folks too, and help us in life or whatever.
So you get a call, 15 years, you get a call, and you end up, someone hikes you back up I-35.
It was great timing. I mean, Michael and I were in a position coming out of COVID that this brick and mortar business, it's a tough margin business. The international stuff with COVID pulled all of that back. So we were faced with a decision, like, you're going to let's restart this thing. And the decision was, let's think about it a different way. Let's take it to put it in a digital mechanism that maybe can scale better and have potentially better ability for margin. Michael had some other projects in mind he'd like to go after. And so as we're muddling those ideas back and forth, I get a call from Oklahoma State, from Coach Rob Glass, the strength coach at Oklahoma State. And he says, we got this president with this vision. And he starts explaining this vision of an institute that can leverage science of high performance and turn that and translate that and give it back. I'm sitting here going, Stillwater, Oklahoma. It's almost it's rewinding all these things. I'm like, man, that's really cool. That'll never happen. I was doubting it. I was like, it's Stillwater. It's Oklahoma. My initial was it's never going to happen. It sounds like a really cool idea. So in that moment, I didn't have faith. But I said, hey, Coach, we got a lot of things going on here. Call me if that really ever kind of coalesces. And within a few months, he called me back. He said, yeah, I think you ought to come up here and meet our president and hear about this.
Dr. Schramm?
Dr. Schramm, yeah. And so I get in the car and head north. And again, visionary, very high. Wow, this is Oklahoma, #1 in all the wrong health categories. Obesity, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, the preventable aspects of things. Could this be a bridge that not only could elevate performance in new ways, but elevate performance in Oklahoma? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And then I drive home thinking, man, Lance, if you don't take this, if you don't do this, shame on you.
Yeah.
You start thinking about all the things that we've talked about on this podcast. That was all setting me up so that I could leverage it to come back to what the state has given me.
Yeah.
Right? It's almost my obligation. If I didn't do it, with everything that I've done, everything that and I'm probably not the best person for it, but I might be the only person that's maybe crazy enough to step in and try to make this work. And I said, shame on me if I don't take it.
Okay.
And so I told Mama at home, I said, hey, honey, we're moving north. She's a 4th generation Okie.
Oh, wow.
So she's coming home. My kids, they're Texans. What are we doing, Dad?
Why are we going to Stillwater?
We're going north. Everybody's driving south on I-35 to move to where we are. And yet we're going north. They weren't Okies. They were Texans. And so that was a big part of this. Hey, I got to announce, kids, this is important to us. This is going to be great for all of us. Selling to my 16-year-old at the time, that was
16's a big age to move at.
It's tough.
Yeah.
He's a soccer guy, loved soccer.
So now he's in college?
He's a freshman at Oklahoma State.
Okay.
How about that, right?
Wow.
Instead of, now he's loving it. Mechanical engineer, aerospace engineering at Oklahoma State is loving it.
I knew you have
I have a daughter that's 16 in Deer Creek High School.
Yeah.
And a wife that's a somewhat retired dentist. And we operate a little rental cabin down in Broken Bow, Oklahoma as part of our side gig that she really enjoys. And that's kind of our church down there is sort of being in that Broken Bow area. So it's about Oklahoma. And so, that call, leverage all these things. Yeah. I come back and now all these connections to Oklahoma that I'd made before, it all just kind of starts to make sense. But now the pressure's on, right? Hey,
you're brought in to run
do
this
it.
And bring this program.
So let's bring this from vision to, from concept to completion. So that's a building, that's staffing, that's funding, that's research, credibility.
Everything.
It's a ton of stuff. Yeah. Another ground up deal. Yeah. So let's go. I mean, right? It's like performance is reality. I mean, I learned that too. You either do it or you don't. You can talk about it. I can talk a good game, but can you do it? And so I think that's where we're at today is look, leverage all those things, go back and pull from this, that, or the other, pick up the phone and call those folks in the UK. There was a chance for me to do a sleep in service for some of the teams the other day. Who do I call? I don't call I call the guy that I met at Man United, who happens to be a sleep expert and was telling me about sleep in 2007, 2008, when I was like, sleep, come on. They've been leveraging this sleep concept since then. I'm like, hey, can you talk to me about the latest on sleep? Turn me on to the latest meta-analysis. Where are you guys at on things? So I want to leverage that and pull that back into here so that anybody, I don't care what you're trying to perform. If you're trying to perform as a college quarterback or you're trying to pull teeth at the dental clinic down the street, I feel like performance is a anchoring to performance can help, I'm going to say it, public health. It can help anchor to that. And if we can help us all perform better, that we somehow, some way can play into this long lagging effect of better health outcomes in the state of Oklahoma.
Is the plan and the vision for this health institute and research place that you have at Oklahoma State to kind of emulate as well what you did with Michael, or just totally different?
I think it's in a unique space would be, instead of being direct to consumer, doing the thing, it's leveraging evidence to support those that are doing the thing. So think about the force multiplying effect of let's leverage evidence-based best practice to make the club coach a better version of him or herself. Less injuries in youth soccer. Maybe they play, and we keep going back to soccer, but less injuries, kids play longer, they have a better experience. And when they're 18, they go off and they're more active 18 to 50-year-olds because they had a good experience. So it's elevating the professionals that support those that are doing the sport versus directly training, little Johnny. It's the force multipliers. And that can be a coach. It can be a sports medicine provider, physical educators. They're doing amazing work, right? And they're impacting lives. They're listening to them all day long. How do we bring best case evidence to support and gird that up and to really elevate, and not that they need to help. It's just let's create in that a supporting structure that impacts them through the kids and the athletes and the people they train. It could be somebody that you work for. If you work for somebody, maybe it's the company. How do we elevate a company wellness program or Maybe it's advocating for policy that optimizes around some of the things that we're learning from the science. Rob from Messi and give to mom. I mean, that's always been, that sounds like a really cool concept. And it doesn't have to all be physical. Some of that can be what we've talked about today, setting goals and emulating some of the grit that these elites have. So that's the vision. And really it becomes health through performance is really when you think about this vision of people, what is this institute about? Health through performance. And so we're not focusing on health, focusing on your performance. Let's have you be the best podcaster in the nation today. I want your brain. I want your that talks to fueling, your movement, how much sunlight are you going to get to, all those things. Let's leverage that for your performance. Backdoor of what we get? Health. You know what I mean? We're backdooring the health thing instead of, hey,
saying you need to be more.
You need to eat better because you need to be healthier. And you're like, yeah, I kind of know that already. You probably already know that. Yeah. Oh, by the way, if you ate a little of this, that, or the other, speed, your concentration maybe a little bit better based on the evidence. Have a nice day.
Yeah. It's so cool to look at it, right?
Maybe I'll take a little different choice because it leverages my performance, which is important to you.
Yeah, it is.
Where my 16-year-old, when he was in soccer, come on. Yeah, don't stay up late and eat those because you're going to increase your risk of type 2 diabetes. Yeah, thanks, Dad.
Cool.
Have a nice day.
Yeah.
Okay, let me reframe this. That Pop-Tart at 11 p.m. is, maybe the evidence supports that could slow down your hand-eye reaction speed for that gaming that you're getting ready to play until 1 a.m. Have a nice night. And now he's looking at that Pop-Tart going,
yeah.
Okay. At least I'm going to pause for a minute and think about this, not because Dad said that's unhealthy, but because that could affect my gaming.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know that it's going to work. But again, it's just.
But it gets you to think about it.
It's one other thing. And we're not the only fight. We're not the only sort of energy in this fight. There's so many folks fighting this health outcomes in the state of Oklahoma, from public health to amazing research that was already going on well before we got here. How do we just lend ourselves, into that fight? And oh, by the way, we've got some really high-end performers at Oklahoma State. How do we learn from them? Yeah. How do we learn from, equestrian riders, world champions, whatever? I mean, let's rob from it. And but then also learn about ways that we can maybe feed back into that machine up there. I mean, it's a great bi-directional feed. It's not just, they just do sports. Sure. What's wrong with sports? Yeah, sports is great. It's a bi-directional sort of a concept here that is the vision of this institute. Yeah. Why not Oklahoma State? What better place? If we can do it in the state of Oklahoma, where could we not replicate this? I mean, where could this not be a benefit if we're the worst, right? Oh, we're the worst. We're the Dust Bowl. We're the Blizzard. We're all that stuff. Yeah. We got the grit to do it, right? And if we can do it here, man, let's take it. Take it everywhere.
Listening to you say that, and just there's so many. Yeah, it's a huge challenge, but when you talk about, you mentioned wrestling at OU earlier. OSU's wrestling, pretty impressive. Dominated, 2 meets this weekend, Friday and Sunday. And you talk about athletes and world champions, and you got a coach that's an Olympian, and then you talk about. I mean, on my side, I'm a huge fan of the golf team. Won nationals last year. Huge golf pedigree. Track is massive, right? Track has won so many championships, long distance and all the things. Like we have, and you have athletes at the school. But then you talk about the practical application outside of athletics, and talk to your son, or you talk to just the mom who's just, getting her head right to be a better mom that day.
Exactly right.
Like it all applies.
It does. And and it doesn't, right? There's the elites that, I can't take from that elite starting whatever, and Dominican Sue that we train, I'm not going to just take that and say, okay, you 12-year-old do that, because it doesn't apply. Pulling up a level, the base level evidence around that we can pull in and say, reason why this works. If we understand the reason why it works, and we have some level of evidence to support, can we translate that? I become a translator. People ask, what do you do? I'm as much a translator now as I am a coach. Yeah. I want to translate this direction, but I also want to translate for the Indomitian Sues of the world from this side of the equation too. There's some translation that can help upstream. And it's this constant sort of, and we as an institute, we do research. What do? We do research. We do some amazing, interesting research. We also collaborate with some of the research that's already been going on at Oklahoma State for years. Mm-hmm. Amazing stuff. Yeah. We collaborate. We become a catalyst for this. We got to translate that then. And that's where Oklahoma State is amazing, right? They're a land grant institution, meaning they have a responsibility to feed back into the state of Oklahoma. So people say, well, how can I pick up the phone, call your extension agent in your county? There's one in every county that is a conduit to the experts at Oklahoma State University. And it may be because you want to get the chinch bugs off your tomato plants. There's an expert at Oklahoma State that can help you do that. There's also experts that can help you with your eating and with your your goal setting and things. Now, they're not going to be personal trainers. They pick up the phone, but it's going to supply you with that sort of that conduit of best practice that can, again, empower, enable, maybe even inspire you to be the best version of yourself. How exciting is that, right?
Yeah, it is.
The mechanism is right there. And we're already starting to see some of that, the benefits of this concept play itself out. We need to be successful in sports too.
Yes, we do.
People watch sports, right? I mean, OSU as a brand.
Yeah.
For me, I didn't like OSU because of, the great engineering program when I was 12 years old. I liked watching Ernest Anderson and Rusty Hilger, play on Saturdays. That was amazing to me. And so whatever your on-ramp is to us at Oklahoma State, whether it's sports or engineering or extension and chinchba, whatever, we want to be an asset. We want to be a provisional asset for you to inspire and inform and involve you in the process of your own performance, whether you're an individual or you're a business owner or you're a policymaker. Performance is for all of us. We're all kind of athletes. I mean, Nike has said that for years, right? We're sort of athletes. We're certainly all performers. And that's performance for you as this podcast, performance for me as an institute director, and performance for our new quarterback at Oklahoma State. He better score some touchdowns on Saturday, right?
Yeah.
And so he, you, me, we're going to do some things along the way that's going to potentially optimize our ability to do that which is important to us. That's performance.
Yeah. It's exciting. I mean, it's endless, right? Like it is going to be your life's work and somebody else's, and it is always going to evolve, which is the exciting part. Knowing that there is never always going to be an answer that's always the same answer now, like the answers that you had in the 70s and the 80s and 90s and now. Some of them may be the same, but some of them are going to evolve because of technology or whatever's happening, which is really exciting for the students coming in too.
That's a great point.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine being a student just thinking we have this facility and these people around us and this team to help us be that kid that you were, right? Like looking back, what are the things, or where would you be if you had what you have now, right? It's always, it's always the older thing to look back, right? Every university, when you graduate, it should generally have better stuff than when you were there.
Right.
Finishing up though, I want you touched on it earlier. I want to finish up with this, and it's cool that you've got older kids as well. But you mentioned that you're a farmer and a rancher now, and back to you raising kids around. Well, you're not around maybe because you were in the city at the time that they were around, but what is it like bringing kids back to Oklahoma and owning a ranch as a parent?
A bit of remorse that they didn't grow up on a ranch. I can tell them all day long. We can go out and experience, working cattle or breaking ice with my brother on the ranch or with the in-laws, but they don't have the lived experience that I have. So a part of it is remorse that we didn't grow up in. Didn't raise our kids on a farm, but then instantly kicks into how many could actually do that? How realistic would that have been?
Yeah.
What am I
you
going
gave
to
the greatest childhood in the environment that you were in at that current time?
Best we can do. What I've got to coach myself up on is not being that parent that's, when I was a kid,
sure.
Because my kids do. I don't know what other people's kids, and they turn off to that. They're like, oh, here we go. It's the I had to do this, I had to do that. My life was so much harder. These kids have hard lives right now. I mean, my son's a freshman. He's looking at the landscape of jobs, and he's like, what have you guys done? You guys have really screwed this up for us. If I was him.
Yeah, the pressure of being a freshman right now.
Come on, man. What did you guys do to this?
Yeah.
It was so much easier for you when you were going to school. So I do. I try to, number one, I try to get them around their grandparents when I can. And their grandparents were who were my parents. I want them to hear from their grandparents. And I don't do a very good job of that. I'm doing better. We've got them spread out. We've got some in Kansas, some, my wife's folks in Oklahoma. My father has moved back to Texas, is in Texas now. But what I try to do is let them have time with those folks, because they won't hear it from me.
Yeah.
They'll get it, they'll get some of that. I think just being in Oklahoma, where it's windy and it's cold and it's dusty and I'm seeing some calluses start to form now.
Soon to be 110 degrees in the summer.
It's weird to say, but I think some of that environmental grit is starting to, hey, we're kind of gritty. We're kind of tough here. Mm-hmm. Not that other folks aren't tough.
No,
but
I know what you mean. Yeah.
There's a difference. There's a difference between North Texas and Oklahoma City that my son and my daughter, And my son for sure is starting to see, and I think he's starting to appreciate that. He's starting to appreciate some of that. So it's not as much of what I tell them. I think what they're experiencing being in the ecosystem and then demonstrating it. I think that's nothing else. I'm going to demonstrate that this is an agrarian approach. This is the farm now. And yeah, it's Christmas Day, and Christmas is a Tuesday. What do you mean? Well, we're going to celebrate Christmas tonight, but it's Tuesday. Tuesday for an Olympian is their 3x200 workout. What do you mean? Yeah, they don't take the Christmas, and that distracts from the process that is today is 3 200s on the schedule. It's a Tuesday. I'm going to go home and have some fun, but I'm going to get that done. It's that process mentality that's always there. The cattle, they need to be fed on Christmas. It's Christmas. We should take the day off. Take the day off, and those calves are going to die because their water's frozen over. There's no feed for them. Feed the cattle. I try to emulate some of that in my day-to-day job. I'm not like I'm some kind of workaholic guy, but I try to say, look, this is part of a process. There's an agrarian approach to this. Visionaries like the president that brought me here, the Coach Snyder's, it's been said, I guess they plant trees that they'll never sit in the shade of, and that's hard for even for me to even say. It's somewhat hard for my son and my daughter to kind of get a hold of, but that's kind of what a lot of this agrarian attitude is about, is a lot of these things that you plant a seed and you nurture it, and there's no guarantee the damn thing's going to come up. And there's a lot of things that can happen, but I'm going to control the controllables. I'm going to follow the process. And if it doesn't come up, I'm unlucky, or no, you do all that you can, enjoy that process along the way, knowing there is no guarantee, and that the process needs to get better. I screwed that up. I'm going to come back and learn. That's farming. That's ranching. There's some grit in that. There's some learning in that, but it's
to fitness and everything else.
It's a process. And the Olympians are using that every day, getting ready for the games right now. They're using a process approach. They're using a seasonality approach to it. They're leveraging a farmer's mentality, as are some of the best coaches that we've talked about here on this podcast today. So I know it sounds weird, cliches, etc., but man, I hope they're getting that in a unique way without having to actually live on a farm. I kind of hope that they think that they are on a farm, and that they have their own farm right now. I'm hoping that they get some of that.
Yeah. Finishing up, practical, maybe some advice for people listening on the health space. Your physical journey yourself, obviously it's kind of the start of the year. Some people signed the New Year's resolutions yesterday first. What do you see that's making the greatest impact? And let's talk about something simple as far as just like maybe it's 10 minutes a day, or walking 10,000 steps, or a 20-minute workout, or there's all these different versions of, back in the day you were throwing hay bales, and but now that's kind of called CrossFit, for some people, right? Or whatever. My brother's into like Olympic lifts and stuff. But what do you tell, like a 40-year-old mom that just like, wants to get in shape and eat a little better? I mean, I know that's a very broad question, and the answer could be this long, but like, is it as simple as just be in a calorie deficit and work out maybe 20 minutes 3-4 times a week?
I pull way up a level. This is the Olympian that we talked about, the bobsled athlete. He's actually going around and he does motivational speaking for businesses, and he gets asked that question a lot, and he talks about thinking like an Olympian. And it's kind of, I think like an Olympian.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay, well, think like an Olympian. What does that mean? And I'll channel a little bit of some of his teachings. Is one about the why. You start with sort of the why. Why do you want to eat better? Why would you want to? Why do you? And then you ask enough whys, and you get to that point where it's like, the why for all of that is something that's really damn important to you. So for me, it's you ask enough questions to why. I want to be able to ultimately, from a physical standpoint, be able to wade in the lower Mountain Fork River and fish. You ever been down there before?
I have, but not to fish.
Slippery rocks. There's a steep incline to get there, but if you want to get to the good spots, which I like, there's some physical demand to that. And I kind of like to take a kayak with me. It's kind of heavy, and I got to get it down there. Now I could fish where everybody else fishes and be okay, but that's where that's my happy place. So if I build backwards from that, for my physical journey, the things I'm going to choose or not to choose today, one of them is be able to do that. So if I anchor to that why, another why is me having more energy for my kids and my family in the evenings. So I can find a couple of anchors and build back from that, instead of starting with, I want to eat healthier and and exercise because
tackle this giant thing that most people look at.
No, it's build backwards from that. Number one is have that sort of why, and then think of your process that is doable back this direction. And you may have one or two controllable things. You may not have a full refrigerator. You may be in a food desert and not have access. We have challenges across this nation and right here in Oklahoma. Well, find the one or two things that are controllable. And usually it anchors for us as an Olympian is, what am I going to move? How am I going to eat? And how am I going to rest? Move, eat, and rest. It's like those are three things that Olympians are working on today. You can trust me. They're working on those three things today. Where could you play in that space a bit better? I don't know, one percentage better in sleep. Is there some things you could, Olympians, they hang on to their sleep. Is there something you could do with your sleep? Maybe that's a starting point. I mean, by improving my sleep, it might help me with getting my kayak in the rear. It could. It's one of those pieces. And maybe it's just one piece of that piece. Maybe it's, hey, you know what? The evidence says today, caffeine 10 hours before you go to bed. After that, you shut it off 10 hours. So why? Well, that's just what science says today. I'm not saying it's absolute for you, but generally speaking, that caffeine shut off 10 hours before your bedtime could help you get better quality of sleep. That might be the one controllable thing that you have. And it starts there. And so what I build backwards from those things and begin to build those controllables in. And anchor it to one thing, anchor it to something else. You try to come with the full nutrition package plus an exercise program plus a recovery package. And, it's 12 weeks and Olympians don't do that. They build backwards from that. And so that process piece, sort of that plan of I'm going to gradually plan this up, knowing every day is not a game day. I need to do this, to do that, to do this, to do that. And 12 weeks later, it's the process that you're into. So yeah, can you sleep a little bit better? Could you move a little bit better? Could you eat a little bit better? Not perfect in any of them. Olympians aren't perfect. Neither will you be. Where can I get a little bit better?
Miserable if you go from nothing to try to be perfect.
You might be.
One, right?
Yeah, or you'll be miserable because you fail. And again, I'm telling you, from the insider's perspective, those Premier League soccer players that we emulate, I've sat with those folks, and I can tell you, they are not perfect at everything. And they don't like making some of the choices they have to make. But you know what they love? They love winning on Sundays. Or they love scoring touchdowns. Or they love having a success. So they're building backwards from those things. So my with respect is, let's not try to get into the perfect workout, the perfect this, the perfect that. Start with why. Build yourself backwards to the things that you could control. And pay attention to where the evidence is leading us. And I think you've got great resources. The extension at Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
They have great resources. There's simple fact sheets. Hey, I'd kind of like to eat better. Great. There's simple fact sheet.
So you just Google the extension?
You can go, Oklahoma State, my OKSTATE, or I believe it's OKSTATE and you can find extension.
Sure.
You can find your extension agent. And now they're not going to tell you what you should do, what your exercise program could be, but they can connect you with resources that do exist. And the great thing is they'll listen to you and they'll say, what resource do you need some resources there. That information gets patched back to the mothership. And then there's some questions around this, that, or the other. Where can we create some fact sheets, create this, that, or the other? There's even research programs that are going on. Hey, I'd like to volunteer to be a part of a research study around how to sleep better, how to whatever. There's those opportunities for folks. So there's resources there. And so Oklahoma State is a great example of that. And then your team around you, do you have a doctor? Share your why with your doctor. Why are you in here? Why are you going to your doctor? Just to avoid disease? I'm going to my doctor. Hey, doctor so-and-so, I need to be able to do da. I want to have more energy for my kids. I want to be able to fish the lower Mountain Fork River when it's slippery and icy and it's a steep incline. I've got an 80-pound kayak I need to lift down. When I begin to share that with my supporting mechanisms, my doctor, my dentist, right? You begin to kind of create this village around you that they're like, holy cow, I know what's important to that person. And now I'm not seeing it as a health, avoidance of disease thing. That's their Olympic Games. That's their Saturday. And they begin to, it kind of channels the entire conversation back into what's important to you. Again, it's not going to solve everybody's challenges, but it's a way that we can steal from the performance mentality, from the Olympians and the elites. I think that allows us to maybe cheat our system a little bit and hack into some of that works for performance for everybody. And look, I think it's personal for every single one of us. But I think that's the first tick of the box is what is your why, and link it to that.
Brilliant. What a great way to finish. Thank you. Thank you for coming down. Thank you for sharing some stories. Thank you for answering the call and coming back. Right.
Let's do it.
It's not it's an easy thing to do, right? When you're 15 years in and in Dallas and dealing with all these Olympians and great athletes and best people in the world, and then you get a call to come home. It's like you
what
said,
a blessing, what an opportunity.
You had to think about it, right? But still, like coming back and taking on a challenge, it's it goes without saying, but that's awesome.
Thank you for what you do. Let's keep this. This is Oklahoma. I'm folks here in Oklahoma, guys. Hang on to that. That is a superpower. Oklahoma there's a superpower here, and we're going to need it to pull ourselves up from the bootstraps here of this health problem we have. But thank you for what you guys do.
Yeah, people listening. We'll catch you next episode. Cheers.
Cool.
So much. That was awesome.
Appreciate you. Yeah, appreciate all the extra time.
Yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at OklahomaHOF. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. This episode is brought to you by the Doghouse OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my 2 pups. So go to thedogHouseOKC.com and follow them on Instagram at thedogHouseOKC, and hopefully our pups will run into each other.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.